Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for sticking around for this panel. My name is Caitlin McIntyre. I'm the Associate Artistic Producer here at Seattle Rep. I use she, her pronouns. It is my profound honor to be up here with this incredible panel of community advocates. Tonight, we are joined by Amelia Bono, the co-founder and director of Shout Your Abortion. Yes. I will allow you to applaud as much as you want. Heidi Schreck, the playwright and author of What the Constitution Means to Me. We have Mercedes Sanchez. Your title is a mouthful, so I'm going to take a deep breath. Director of Development, Communications, and Community Education and Outreach at Cedar River Clinics. We have U.S. Representative from Washington's 7th Congressional District, also a mouthful, Pramila Jayapal from Milton, And last but not least, we have Alexis Turla, who is the Chief of Staff of Seattle City Council member Tammy Morales. So thank you all for being here. We're just going to jump in. The panel's going to go until about 10 p.m. If you need to pop out, that's totally fine. Before we get started, I have a very special shout out. So this is our very first production in our newly renovated Bagley Wright Theater. How do those seats feel? Well, I would be remiss to not mention that those seats are made possible by Congresswoman Jayapal, who secured Seattle Rep the Federal Community Project Funding Award of $300,000, which will support our accessibility-focused renovations right here in the theater and in our lobby restrooms to make our facility more welcoming and inclusive for everyone in our community. So thank you so much, everyone here. Everyone here and our butts are so grateful to you. So with that aside, I would love to just jump in. I would love for each of you to tell us a little bit more about what you do in the community, and I would love to hear just a quick one-word response to the play that you just witnessed. So my one-word response to this play is always cathartic. And Amelia, I'll just have you go down the line, and we'll start with you.
Hi, everybody. It's really an honor to be here with this panel and with all of you. My name is Amelia Bono. I use she, her. I started an organization/movement called Shout Your Abortion that started right here in Seattle when my own abortion disclosure went super viral back in 2015. And over the next 5 or so years, we did a ton of work all over the country, creating places for people to talk about their abortion experiences in art and media and events all over the country. And now we are really pivoting into the organizing space, and we're working to make people know how to access abortion in their communities, whether it's legal or not, and how to support other people doing so. And I'm sorry, I just yoink. I was gonna say my word is thanks.
I'm Heidi Schreck. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a playwright. It's really an honor to be here with so many people, all of these people I admire deeply, and people who've affected my thinking about speaking up about my own story of having an abortion and people who influenced this play. So thank you to all of you up here. I'm basically a playwright, and now because of the play have become more of an activist, but really I just wanted to write a story about my life and my family in relationship to this country. And I guess the one word I think of when I think of this play is familiar.
Hi, I'm Mercedes Sanchez. I use she, her pronouns. I work at Cedar River Clinics. Cedar River Clinics was founded in 1979 in Yakima, Washington, by 2 young women who wanted patient-centered care in their small conservative town. So we currently have clinics in Renton, Seattle, Tacoma, and Yakima, as well as doing telehealth online. And we do reproductive health care, and we are proud abortion providers. And I also serve on the national board of the Abortion Care Network, which is a membership organization for independent abortion clinics. And I'm going to cheat on my one word and make it a hyphenate: thought-provoking.
Well, hello, everybody. It is great to be here. I'm Pramila Jayapal, and I have the great honor of representing you if you live in the 7th Congressional District in the United States House of Representatives. And just to be clear, that $300,000 was not for me personally. It is actually thanks to your taxpayer dollars and the United States federal government that we were able to bring those dollars home for community-based projects. I am, thanks to you, the first South Asian American woman to serve in the United States Congress. Thanks to you, I'm one of only 24 naturalized citizens to serve in the United States Congress. Thanks to you, I'm one of only 90 women of color that have ever served in the United States Congress since the history of our country. And I'm really excited to be here tonight. And Heidi, I'm just so grateful to you. This was such an amazing play, and I have so many words, including hilarious, prescient, but the one that kept coming to me over and over again is, or the two that kept coming to me over and over again, is deeply necessary. What a fantastic play. I hope it goes everywhere. I hope we have like the Vagina Monologues version of of the Constitution and what it means to me. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I can't believe I have to go after you. Hello, everyone. My name is Alexis Turla. I use the pronouns she, her. I heard my title. I am the Chief of Staff to Councilmember Tammy Morales, who represents District 2 CID. Anybody who's South End people. And I will share a little bit more about my titles, but I also think I'll share my most important title. I am also the diversity chair for the National Women's Political Caucus that helps to recruit, train, and get women elected at up and down the ballot. I was a co-founder of the Women of Color Candidate Training, which was the first ever in Washington State. We are now on our 8th cohort. And I am also the co-founder of Persist PAC, which is a project PAC that is dedicated to providing resources to progressive candidates. Our last one was getting many of the Black women for a historic level in our Washington State legislature elected. So very excited about that. But most importantly, I will tie this into the word that I would like to use today. I am Linda's daughter. My mother started out in segregated schools. She got pregnant when she was a sophomore in college, and she had to go to, we're Catholic, and so she had to go to a home for wayward mothers. She just recently shared with me after an abortion rally that she had an abortion, again, 2 years after my sister was born. I always talk about how I am actually very grateful for this. I am the manifestation of all of her dreams. But one thing I have not shared publicly is that I grew up in a home filled with domestic violence. And the one thing that I have to say is I'm thankful and I feel seen. Back to me.
Thank you so much for that. I also just want to mention that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So I encourage you to support local organizations, many of which you can find on Seattle Rep's website, that are serving survivors in our community. So thank you. This is a great segue actually to my first question for you all, which is, what do you see as the role of storytelling in activism or policymaking or advocacy?
I will start really quickly. I am sitting next to one of the most phenomenal storytellers. I always use any of her clips as a masterclass for anyone, and encourage all of y'all to use your truths to run for office. Obviously, gonna stay on brand. It is vitally important sharing my story and coming from a home filled with domestic violence, having a mother who had to endure the silence, sharing her abortion story at the age of 74. That silence is the way in which we keep our society in complacency. We keep people marginalized, and it's so important that we vocalize those stories and those narratives to bind us, to humanize, and to make sure that we bring them forth so that we can bring about progressive change. Those stories is what motivates us every single day to bring forth the positive aspect of the Constitution. I'm also a lawyer by training, so love all that. I go deep diving into that a whole bunch. It is key that we start to share those stories. I will also share that body autonomy is about how you choose to have a family. I have been on a journey of fertility for 4 years, and it is frightening to me how even the choice to have a family is compromised by the Dobbs decision. So that is what I will leave it right there and hand it over to the masterclass.
Thank you so much for sharing some of your story tonight, and I know there's just so much that informs what a fantastic leader you are, so I'm grateful to you. I'm an organizer. That's what I did for 20 years before coming to Congress, and I'm still an organizer in Congress. But I think of policy as being the manifestation of story in law. And I think of law as being the things, or laws as being the things that can change the stories of the future. And to me, that is really why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I think policy is really, it sometimes seems like this ephemeral thing. It's theoretical, it's something that's out there. People don't always see it as deeply connected to their lives, but really all it is all of these stories that come together. And Amelia, I was at Shout Your Abortion's 1-year birthday party, God knows when that was, but, and listening to all the stories that were being told, it was, of course, the reality of why we need Roe v. Wade codified into law and not left to a Supreme Court. But it is the single most influential and important thing. And when I spoke about my abortion publicly for the first time back in 2019 in an op-ed in the New York Times, I hadn't told my mother either. And I had to tell her because I was going to tell everybody else. Same thing, Heidi. And I think that we also have to change the nature of how we in politics engage. And we have to tell our stories too. We are we are now much more diverse, but not yet diverse enough. And we have these lived experiences that when we can bring them and share them in the context of the laws that we're making, we make it more accessible for everybody to see themselves represented and to feel seen and heard, and to be able to bring out nuances of stories. And so when I told my abortion story, I was only the second Congress member that had ever spoken about an abortion in Congress. Jackie Spear was the first. Hers was a a medical necessity abortion. And then after I did, Barbara Lee did, Cori Bush did. Now we have 5 women who have shared stories of their abortions, but I know that there are a lot more because they've told me. And they aren't ready to share their stories, and they don't need to. But the idea that we can have story as a compelling force for why we need change and to really describe the vision of the future that we're trying to create, I think to me is the most exciting part of being a policymaker, is bringing that story in and then being able to create a new story of what our future looks like.
I think at its deepest core, storytelling is sharing our experiences, but also so we know we're not alone. And I think as we hear more voices, it also creates a path from our great-grandmothers, our grandmothers, all the way forward into our future. And I think it shows us our strengths as well as leading us where we want to be. So it's a way we can dream reality and power and change into reality. And I think also, especially thanks to groups like Shout Your Abortion, being able to talk openly about abortion and the personal impacts on our lives, I think it helps reduce the stigma, which is deeply needed right now.
I feel a little in awe of all these people. So obviously I think story is important. That's why I wrote the play. I guess I'll just say that I grew up, my mom told me the story of her life growing up, starting when I was about a teenager, and I've been through many stages of reckoning with the story that she told me. At first, you know, disbelief and deep grief, and kind of, I say in the play, like anger at her for telling me, because I didn't want to think that that's what the world was like. And as I've gotten older and older, I've just been really grateful to her for being so honest about her life, for allowing me to be connected to her through her story and understand like where I came from and what she survived and went through, and the strength that she had that allowed me to find the strength that I had. And so I guess I want to say that I feel like sharing stories with one another is how we actually are able to love one another. And if we don't share our stories, the truth of our lives, we don't give each other the opportunity to love and support one another. So at its most fundamental level, I feel like that's the gift of storytelling, is it helps us to connect and to love each other and understand each other.
Okay, lots of good answers here. I'm gonna try to not say anything redundant. So, I mean, I think that like, when we talk about our own lives, or when I think about what has just happened in this country legislatively, I think you can really trace it back to the part where the anti-choice movement made it terrifying and dehumanizing for us to speak honestly about our lives. And then a lot of us didn't, and they just jumped into that silence and filled it with lies, and dominated the conversation, right, for decades. And you really had to like leverage your own humanity and dignity and potentially safety and the respect of your community, whatever, in order to like put yourself out there. And like, they're lying, though, is the thing. Because any abortion provider will tell you, they provide abortions all day long for people who identify as pro-life or who are operating from some profound place of cognitive dissonance. You know who else wasn't ready to tell their story is Herschel Walker. One really cool thing about being anti-abortion is you can have and pay for as many abortions as you want and still be anti-abortion. I mean, these people don't even want abortion to go away. They just want to decide who gets to have them, and they know that their people will always be okay. But we know that abortion has always been here, and it always will be, and that abortion allows us to live our best lives. Like, we are the proof of that. So, you know, we weren't ever going to have good policy in a country where people don't speak honestly about having had abortions. So this is a great start.
Thank you. I wonder, Amelia, while you have the mic, I wonder if you could talk a little bit. Mercedes mentioned the stigma that Shout Your Abortion is trying to combat. What are some of the stigmas that you see out there that still exist, and how do you all take them down?
I mean, I think that we're all taking them down together by just being good people who have had abortions, you know, out here being lovable and wonderful. Like, you can't help it, we're good. And we're just your friends and family and the people you know, you know. I mean, there's a million different layers of abortion stigmas. I think that the two most top of mind that come to me are multiple abortions. I think even on the left, or amongst people who support access, there's this idea that, like, well, you get one. And, like, turns out you don't. You get as many as you need. And by need, I mean want. There's no such thing as an elective abortion, and there's no such, you know, like, not wanting to have a kid, that's all the reason you need. I think that also, I guarantee you that there are many people in this audience that have had abortions and more than one abortion, and it's all good. There are people out there that love you and judge you, and there are do not judge you. And there are a lot of people like you. I think also abortion later in pregnancy is still really sticky for people. And I think that that's something that supporters of abortion access need to get better at confronting, and like listening to folks who have had later abortions and who provide later abortions about what these situations really are, and going to the mat for that. You know, we are not going to capitulate. Yeah, those are the ones that come to mind, I think, for me.
You lost. Oh, there we go. I would also, one that comes to mind for me is just that this thought that people that have abortions are sort of selfish, childless people just roaming free on the streets. But it's something like 60% of people who get abortions already have children. Congresswoman Jayapal, that is what your situation was, that you already had a child when you had your abortion. I wonder if you could speak a little bit about that stigma that exists.
Yeah, I think that is one of the things that people don't know. You know, you make choices at different times in your life. You don't have to have a good reason to have an abortion. But I was in a situation where my daughter, who is 26 years old almost, and absolutely beautiful, a wonderful, wonderful human being, was born at 1 pound, 14 ounces, 26 and a half weeks. I was living in India at the time, and I was actually living in a village, and there wasn't really medical care available. We went to one of the only 2 NICUs in the country, and she really almost didn't make it. I mean, for 3 months, we had no idea if she was gonna live or die. When we finally, she had all kinds of issues. She had to have multiple blood transfusions. She would just stop breathing all of a sudden. And they really didn't know why this happened. And we finally had to come back to the United States only because she developed water in her brain. And the NICU, the most recent NICU had only been there for a year. So it was really, really brand new. And they said, we just can't do anything for you here. You need to go back to the United States. And of course, I was fighting for my citizenship at the time, because it took me 17 years to become a citizen. And in order to keep up my green card, which is what I was at the time, a green card holder, I couldn't be gone from the United States for more than a year at a time. And I was supposed to come back 3 months before Kashi was born. It just didn't happen that way. And so I lost my green card status, and all of this to say it was an incredibly traumatic time. I came back to the United States, and she still had problems. She had seizures, I went through a terrible depression, postpartum depression. I didn't know that that's what it was at the time. I was suicidal for a brief time, and I finally got help and got through it, and I feel like that experience has made me so much stronger. It is the hardest thing I have ever been through in my life. But I got divorced in the process, and I met a wonderful man who's here, my husband Steve, and you know, I knew that I was not ready to have another child. I knew that as much as I loved Steve and did want to have children at some point, I was still dealing with Kashi's health issues. I was still dealing with my own mental health issues. And so I was religious about my contraception, and it just didn't work. What can I say? It didn't work. I got pregnant, and it was a hard decision for me. It does not have to be a hard decision for everyone. My sister came out after I did and talked about the abortion she had, and she said, you know, it really bothers me when people make it sound like it has to be a hard decision. It was not hard for her. It was hard for me. It doesn't have to be hard. But I think the thing that, for me in that moment, there was the medical piece of it. The doctor told me they couldn't guarantee I wouldn't go through that again, and I knew I couldn't be there for Kashi and be able to deal with another child who was born with some of the same issues that Kashi had. And so I decided to have an abortion, and I had the most amazing abortion doctor who I'm still in touch with and is just such a wonderful human being. And she was compassionate, she was kind. We live in a state where it was legal to have an abortion. And I felt so fortunate. I didn't have the income issues that many pregnant people have. And I think that for me, it was, we talked about stigma earlier. You know, I'm an immigrant. The culture in India is that you have a lot of children, and it's a real sort of source of pride. You don't have a divorce, and you have a lot of children. Those are like the two things that are sort of there. And so it was very difficult for me because I didn't tell my mom about, she was already, and she's an amazing woman. And after I came out with after I told her in my New York Times op-ed, she said to me, I am so sorry. Is it something I did that made you feel like you couldn't tell me? And I said, no, it's not anything you did. It's just the world that we lived in at the time. There was a lot of stigma and shame. And so my reasons for talking about my abortion finally were that there were all these bans happening across the country, and I saw the Dobbs decision coming. I think so many of us did. And it was deeply frustrating to me that we were not seeing the threat of what could happen. And I thought that by telling my story with the platform that I had as a member of Congress, that it would allow people to talk about their stories. And that's probably the best thing that happened out of that op-ed is I got thousands of letters and emails and phone calls, and people would come up to me and say, you know, I told my mother for the first time. Indian Americans and immigrants would come up and say, now I felt like I could share this. You know, my best friend told me that she helped somebody get an abortion. There were all these stories that came out about the truth that there's 1 in 4 women in this country who have had an abortion. And yet we talk about it, or we don't talk about it. We put it out there as if there's something that we have to defend, something that is wrong, something that we should allow these 5 justices, male justices on the Supreme Court, well, not all male, 5 justices on the Supreme Court, by the way, all of whom were appointed by presidents who lost the popular vote in the country, every single one of them, to get in our business. This is our freedom, our decision. And so it has just made me really proud to be able to share the story, and with Kashi's blessing, because I needed Kashi's blessing to, and Steve's blessing, to be able to share, because they were very much a part of that story. So I'm just grateful that the story can be put to use on a platform that has a lot of power because of the position I hold, and to be able to get other people to talk about this, even if they're not sharing their stories publicly. And maybe I'll just say the very last thing is probably the best email I got was an email from somebody who, a gentleman in the district who said, I'm a constituent of yours and I disagree with you on just about everything. And I opened the New York Times and I thought to myself, oh God, here's another woman shouting her abortion. And he said, and I was just horrified about what I was gonna read. And then I started reading it and I realized that you were not telling me that I had to believe or want abortions for the people in my family. You were just saying, it's your choice. If you don't want to have an abortion, that's fine with me. Great, I am happy for you. But it is your choice. That's the whole point of this. It is your freedom, your choice.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, just to expand a little bit on, many of you have mentioned the Dobbs decision. Heidi has been working on the show for over 10 years and has performed it in many fraught political moments. I saw it during the Christine Blasey Ford trial, or a testimony. It felt like a trial. But right now, the moment we're in right now really feels like, to quote the play, like a crucible, like we're in a severe test. And I'm just curious from all of you, what are your reflections on this moment? Is there any hope that you have right now?
Well, I will start with that. I am also a masochist because I'm on my third tour of duty for an elected official. For all those that have worked in policy, you know what I'm saying. I started out as an activist going into law school, not really believing in the Constitution. I just went to try to burn it down. I was the opposite of whatever the Tea Party or whatever. I was like, I'm gonna burn it down. I'm gonna take it all down. It's gonna be me. And I went in. I came out more complicated and understanding the complexity and the dynamics of the country that we live in. And I knew that I wanted to dedicate my life to changing policy, writing policy, and I'm really thankful for that. We are in a very divisive and challenging time. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that one. The Supreme Court just started this week their next term, and they are going to take up one of the most crucial cases that could really shape how laws will impact us, particularly what is passed at the state level and our local levels, giving extreme power and exercising what they have been trying to do since the civil rights movement in placing states' rights. That is why I am actually thinking that this is the moment that I sit in, and I'm humbled to work in the city of Seattle to make sure that abortions are not just legal, but accessible. Our people from the Cedar Rivers Clinic can talk about being one of the safe states. We are anticipating approximately 400% increase in abortion access here, and folks coming to obtain abortions here in Washington State. But we also live in an illusion of progressive and security. I know, it's Seattle, we are all cool, but we're not. So we have my Councilmember Tammy Morales and Councilmember Lisa Herbold are working together jointly to ensure that we have accessibility, security, and of funds that are available. We've passed legislation to ensure that we have anti-discrimination policies at the city level, again, because if stuff goes down at the Supreme Court, we just want to make sure that we are all cool here. And then making sure that we have safety and security when you are obtaining an abortion. But also we have a lot of work to do. Half of our hospitals here have already merged with religious institution-driven directives over those hospitals. We have one hospital in Seattle that provides later term abortions. And there are folks that are going to come from different places later in their pregnancy cycles that are going to need abortions here. And we need to make sure that there is accessibility for all of those folks and also the people who reside here. So that's the hope. The hope is that there are great people like Congressman Jayapal, like my boss, and the hundreds of people that sit behind them that are constantly working on making these critical changes. And we are ready to fight. And I think that that's my sounding the alarm, is that we have sat back, we thought we were all cool, we thought everything was fine, and this is not the time to sit back. The opposition has been working since the Civil Rights Act, I mean, truly forever, but truly for the last 60 years to reverse everything that has been progressively moving forward for those that are marginalized. And we need to make sure that we are just as fervent with our policy making as well. So please vote. I feel like I don't need to say that to the group here. Please vote, please vote, please vote, please vote. But not just vote, engage. Our democracy, that we the people, it works because we engage in it. So just beyond voting, get engaged around a particular policy, whatever your issue is. Also, the climate's burning, like there's so much stuff. And then, we're just people. We're just people that truly believe in public service. If you feel like you have that calling, please run for office. Like, I know that everyone keeps talking about like, oh, I really want to run for office. Like, yeah, run for office. Like, you can do this too. You can be that voice. You could be that vote. You could be that crucial vote that is needed. So that is what I will say is kind of hard, but there's also a teensy bit of hope, and that's coming from the Black woman on the stage. That's kind of So I'm feeling like if I can say that, I can get up every day and fight. I feel like everyone else can join me in that fight as well.
Yeah, thank you. Well, before you give the mic away, I wanted to, I think the city council is also working on some legislation to crack down on what are sometimes called pregnancy,
Crisis pregnancy centers.
Crisis pregnancy centers.
We actually just passed that.
So that's Marcy, the receptionist, who worked at a crisis pregnancy center, which masquerades as an abortion clinic only to try and convince women not to have abortions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's another thing too, is that, being one of the most secular places in the country, we don't think of the crisis pregnancy clinics or limited pregnancy centers that exist here, but they do. They're becoming very smart. They're mobilizing, and they're really just data mining centers because they are not subject to HIPAA laws. So when women are going there and giving their vital information, they are a network of systems that share that information globally. And what our folks who are attorneys are really sounding the alarm around privacy and prosecution. And so our next step is, first of all, we had made sure that the misinformation through limited crisis pregnancy centers is limited and curbed here in Seattle. And the next step is working here locally, but also with our state partners to ensure that your data and privacy is secure, because It is, we are already seeing that happen. If you haven't heard, please look it up. In Nebraska, just sharing information through Facebook and being prosecuted. Idaho with its total ban on abortion, and folks that they're going to share their information outward. The American Medical Association just recently came out even saying that the HIPAA privacy laws are not secure enough. And so we need to, at every level of government, make sure that when you are accessing information, or even if you somehow stumble upon these terrible crisis pregnancy centers, that information is not going to be used to prosecute you in the future.
Thank you. Thanks. Mercedes, I wonder if you could speak a little bit to the experience of this moment working at a clinic and what, if any, hope that you're seeing.
Well, I think I'd like to start big picture by saying, honestly, Roe v. Wade was never enough. Marginalized people and communities have never had meaningful access. And so I think that we can't just look back at bringing back Roe v. Wade. We need something much, much better and stronger. And it's working in a clinic now is interesting. And I do also want to speak to the complacency in Washington State. And I'm sorry, I'm going to be the harbinger of doom for a moment. But I don't know if you all know this election, 87% of our state legislators are up for re-election, which means it's entirely possible Washington could lose the Democratic majority in the House and or Senate, which is scary. When I first started working at Cedar River Clinics, we had a split legislature and nothing ever got done, which was both good and bad. In the clinic, we are seeing Cedar River Clinics is a second trimester abortion provider. And we've been serving patients from out of state for decades because we go to 26 weeks, and there are restrictive laws around gestation. So those numbers have just kept rising, and it's interesting. What else has been rising is more aggressive protesters. And, once they got the win, we started seeing it. And interestingly enough, they are sponsored and supported by crisis pregnancy centers, the more aggressive, crazy ones. So there's a whole lot there to unpack. And, I would say being at a clinic right now, it's both enraging, but it also renewed all our staff's dedication and just resolve that we're going to be there for everyone who needs an abortion. And to hear the stories of patients who have to travel out of state, it's heartbreaking. And I think it also goes to that storytelling piece and the stigma piece. I think in this country, especially in the press, there has been too much made about the tragic stories and the good abortion, the stigma of abortion that's justified. When really, as Amelia said, all you need is to want not to parent. And I think the only hope I have, also little bitty hope, is actually putting a lot of responsibility on all of you. It's, of course, to vote, and run for office as well, because all the polls show the majority of Americans across political parties believe abortion should be accessible. So how did we get here? And so that shows on so many levels, not just abortion, but that our elected officials are not diverse enough and don't represent us. So there is a little hope, but I'm actually asking for something huge. I hope this is a line that has been crossed and just creates a groundswell that overturns our political systems, our judicial systems, because they're broken.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. And I can't help but mention, I'm from Kansas, and my family is all still there, and the vote that happened this summer to enshrine abortion rights is one of the things giving me hope that now that it's being put up to votes, that maybe we've awoken the beast, maybe, this much. We only have a few minutes left. So Heidi, I would just love to hear a little bit from you about, you talk in the play, or Cassie Beck talks in the play through your words about how you look up to younger feminists. I'm curious, what's some of the activism that you're seeing that you're inspired by that maybe gives you hope?
I mean, there's so much happening. I do feel like, whatever, I'm sure I'm generalizing, but from what I can tell, like, the younger people are not putting up with the shit that, like, I feel like my generation was willing to put up with. And seeing people like, Olivia Juliana, is that her name? The, like, amazing young activist. They're super smart and brave and savvy and entitled in the best way, and know what they deserve, and also know how to wangle social media in a way that I just have a lot of excitement and confidence in what the boundaries they're going to draw and the things they're going to manifest in this country. So that makes me really hopeful. And I, like you were saying about, like, we are in such a divided moment in our country, but the truth is, like, I mean, abortion is just one issue. Like, the majority of this country supports the right to have an abortion, and a lot of other things that are very progressive. Like, that is the truth. And yes, the system is really in our way here, and it's, you know, all sorts of things, the Electoral College, the Senate, there's a lot of things, like, just mechanically that are fucked up, but, like, the fact that the majority of people, I think, are actually on the same side does actually give me hope. And looking at young people gives me hope. I also want to say and I just want to back up to the stigma thing, because I think only until recently I also had the stigma of early term abortion versus late term. Like, I still really bought into that and didn't completely understand why someone might have a late term abortion. Now I have heard the stories and I have a deeper understanding of that, but I have come, particularly this year, to really believe in this saying that the perfect abortion law is a blank sheet of paper. Like, there are hundreds and hundreds of reasons someone might need an abortion, and they're nobody's business except for the person who needs the abortion or wants the abortion. And me letting go of that stigma of, like, what week is it okay to have an abortion has been a really profound thing for me.
Thank you. We only have a couple minutes left. I would just love for, maybe starting with you, Amelia, to hear what are some actions that people that want to advocate for. You've already started, you've already talked about voting and running for office and all of those wonderful things. What are some other things people can do to support abortion access, both locally, across the country, and across the world?
Yeah, so I guess, like, picking up on the hope thing, the Supreme Court has just handed down a decision that is opposed by 70% of Americans, and a decision which will be circumvented and defied by the vast majority of people that it seeks to impact. And I have hope because that's a fucking legitimacy crisis, and it's long overdue. I think it's on us to embody that legitimacy crisis, and as was mentioned, like, they really ripped the mask off when, like, Clarence Thomas wrote this decision and made it very clear that they're just getting started. And I really believe between the climate change stuff and the states' rights stuff, like, outward collective defiance of this court is the only way that we survive the rest of our lives. And I'm really glad to hear you clapping. That's what gives me hope, because we can maintain abortion access in post-Dobbs America, but we have to start seeing access as not an abstract right that we get from some group of dumbasses in dorky robes who think of themselves as little kings, but we need to start creating it in our own communities and divest from the authority of the court altogether. And we do that in a few really specific ways. First of all, we share information about abortion pills, which are safe and effective and available by mail in all 50 states. And the courts are going to try to regulate these. They're going to ban them, and we're going to use them anyway. And we're going to help each other use them anyway, and we're going to get better and better at going around these laws without getting caught. And when somebody does get caught and is criminalized, we're gonna go outside and burn shit down. And that's number one. Number two, we're gonna fund each other's abortions. We're going to support our local abortion funds, which are critical grassroots networks that have been working to offset the disparity, the racist, classist disparities in access that have existed this entire time, as Mercedes said. Abortion funds are absolutely the way through, especially when it comes to abortion later in pregnancy and getting people out of state who aren't good candidates for pills. And the third thing is to support independent abortion providers. I see a number of you here in the audience. Indie abortion providers are the ones that are doing the vast majority of care later in pregnancy. Planned Parenthood has this astounding name recognition. They're very well funded. Indies need your support most of all. So we're gonna do those three things: share info about pills, fund each other's abortions, support indie clinics, and we're going to do all of these things in an outward, like as defiantly as we can. Because that's how we're going to build a movement that not only, wins back our rights, and this time gets rights that actually don't leave anyone behind, but that's how we're going to create access in the absence of rights in the interim. We have a bunch of materials in the lobby. We've got buttons that say, "Ask me how to aid and abet abortion," and it's on a card that goes to our website that outlines everything that I just said. I feel like sorry.
Thank you. No, thank you. Very informative. Does anyone want to follow that, or? Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you for the hope.
If I may just interject real quickly. So I did want to back up Amelia. So the majority of abortions in this country are actually provided by independent abortion providers like Cedar River Clinics. We perform 3 out of 5 abortions in this country, and that amount goes higher the higher you go into gestation, up to over 90%. And it is so important to fund abortion funds because that's how people get to clinics. But it's also really important to fund independent clinics because people need somewhere to travel to, and they need to be well-resourced. And I think another thing that everyone can do personally is talk about abortion. And not necessarily if you've had one, but just talk about it so the stigma starts coming undone. And it's just something we talk about, that we support, and that everyone has the right to.
Okay, so I just want to close this out in saying that Rachel Maddow calls me her optimist in chief, and other people call me the hope dispenser, and that's not at all to say that we're not in the most serious crisis that we've seen in a long time of our democracy, and I was there on January 6th in the gallery, trapped in the gallery, so I really do understand this, and I serve on the Judiciary Committee and was on the first impeachment trial, but I want to just provide this. Literally in 2 years of President Biden and Democrats in control of the House and the Senate with the slimmest margins, 4 seats in the House and no seats in the Senate, we have cut child poverty by 32%. We have cut hunger by 40%. We have cut unemployment to the lowest level in over half a century. We have passed, and I don't know where Mara is, but we have passed the first ever massive climate investment of $356 billion that will bring fossil fuel emissions down by 40% by 2030. We have, yes, cheer, yes, absolutely. We have passed the first ever gun safety laws in God knows how long, and none of this is enough. I'm the chair of the Progressive Caucus. Are progressives ever satisfied? No, we have a big vision. We are never satisfied. But I want people to understand how much has changed just through the organizing that has been happening for decades by presidential candidates that have put forward big visions, and by having control of bodies so that we can finally, if we get 2 more seats in the Senate, we can get rid of that frickin' filibuster and we can actually pass some of these bills that we have passed in the House of Representatives. So I feel hopeful because I think that strength emerges in times of crisis. And crisis actually tests you. It says to you, are you ready to really put much more on the line than you've put on the line before? If you are one of the privileged class, in whatever way you might take that to be, can you step out of that for a minute and put yourself in the shoes of somebody who doesn't have that privilege and actually fight like your life depends on it? And yes, that's all the things that everyone has been talking about. It is also believing in the moments that are the darkest, that there is light there. And maybe we're in that penumbra, Heidi, but a penumbra has light on one side and darkness behind us. And the shadow is where we stand in. And sometimes in Seattle, in the gray skies, the shadow feels like too much, and it feels like too much for me. But I believe that so much more is possible. 2 seats in the Senate, keep the House, and we can actually pass some of this stuff in the Senate that we have passed in the House. And we really, there is so much at stake here. All the bad stuff, I'm not gonna go into it because this is the hope dispenser part. This is about how we make change happen, and we do it all together. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not going to say anything else about policy. I'm just going to say I am channeling a little bit of Tanya Tucker and a little bit of Dolly tonight in honor of Loretta Lynn. I think for me, music is always levity. It keeps me motivated, a little bit of Beyonce, but I would just say add a little bit of Loretta Lynn in there, especially the pill. She was ferocious to actually pull together a song in a time, especially in country music, when women didn't have a voice. So I would say, play the pill on the way home tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for that hope. And a playlist on the way home. What more could we ask for? Thank you again to these amazing panelists. Thank you for being here, and also thank you for the work you do in our community. Everyone here is indebted to you, truly. So thank you so much. If you missed it on the way in, there is some free swag thanks to Shout Your Abortion and Cedar River Clinics. There's some free contraceptives in the lobby. Pick those up on your way out. Free Plan B, folks. You found it here. What the Constitution Means to Me plays until October 23rd. Please tell your friends, tell your enemies. We'll take them all. And please share about the experience that you had here tonight. Thank you again to this panel, and thank you all for sticking around. Appreciate you.